Hi, I'm Rich Fink from the Western Loudon Art Studio Tour, and it is my pleasure today to be interviewing Bryan Mattraw. Bryan, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Oh, I'm terrific. Let's get started. So
All
can you,
right.
all right, so can you tell me a little bit about your artistic journey?
As far as pots go, I started uh, making pots in college. I had gone into college as a painter, and I had to take a pottery course. I took a pottery course, and it was all over from there. And so I knew going into college that I wanted to be both an artist and a teacher. And so I actually went to college in North Carolina, even though I had graduated from Loudoun County High School.
Mhm.
And I ended up coming back to Loudoun County to be a teacher. I taught for 3 years as an art teacher at Simpson. And I wanted to continue to pursue my artistic endeavors, and so pottery was that thing at that point. And I ended up finding a job at a studio just outside of Boston, and so I worked and taught there, and ultimately was the studio manager there. And it was a bookseller, and as a bookseller, I was able to like view all of these different books and videos and other things. And I found that wood firing was what I really wanted to do. And so from there, I actually took out an ad in a magazine advertising myself as an apprentice, and I wanted to learn about wood firing. And so I ended up going to a potter in Vermont who
Wow.
was a wood-fired potter, and I apprenticed with him for 2 years. And then after that, I ended up being like, okay, I miss teaching, and now I feel like I have enough knowledge to sort of start to pursue this. I
Mhm.
came back to Loudoun County. I helped Sean Grove, who I know you interviewed earlier, build
Yes.
his kiln, and we worked together for several years. And then when my wife and I bought this place out in Lovettsville, I was able to build my own kiln and start on my own personal journey in wood firing. So that's the long and the short of it.
Okay. Well, you've been around, haven't you?
I've gone around a little bit, yeah.
Well, that's good. Do you still do painting as well?
I do not. I mean, occasionally I will take my hand to painting on pots a little bit, a very small amount, and a little bit more in the past 2 years, I think.
Uh-huh.
Um, but pottery to me is the ultimate in that it sort of combines the sort of intellectualism of painting
Mhm.
and this study of color and sort of form and all of these things, but it's this thing that you can touch and you can feel and you can interact with. And it's sculptural, but it's functional at the same time. And I just love the way that those things come together. And yeah, it just, like I said, when I when I first had to take the pottery class, I was kind of like meh, because I was an artist, I was a painter, and then I touched the clay and I moved it and I saw it, the process,
Mhm.
and my father was a scientist, so I have a kind of like that science mind at the same time, and so it just brought all of those things together for me that I thought it's yeah, it's never left me. Obviously, I'm a little get excited about it.
Yeah,
So
my dad was a chemist too. So
yeah,
yeah, it's it just gets in your blood,
it
that
does.
type of organization. Yeah, it does. So Bryan, how long would you say that you have been a professional potter? How many years?
So I would say, I mean, professionally, I came back, like I said, I came back to Loudon in 2001 and 2002, and so started kind of selling consistently, doing WLast, more recently doing the Catoctin Holiday Art Tour out here that's Lovettsville artists. And so there, you know, I have been doing it for since 2001.
Yeah, so you're coming up on your 20th anniversary.
Yeah, my 20th anniversary, and probably 35 years of making pots, but 20th anniversary of actually making and hopefully selling.
There you go. There you go. So in that time, in those decades, how has your technique changed?
Well, I mean, you know, my first big shift was doing the wood firing. So, you know, to find that and to find that aesthetic that goes along with it was the first thing. And then from there, you know, it's a very slow evolution, I would say. You know, and I'm constantly tweaking little things and experimenting each time I throw pots, because most of my pots are thrown.
Uh-huh.
You know, I always start with a mug, because the mug is kind of the fundamental thing to me, that people can interact with. And then, but each time I change that mug a little bit. I try something. You know, I do something different to the bottom of the pot. And so it's a really, and my process, it's usually a 6-month cycle. So to get through that cycle and then to start again, you know, I can make sort of 2 experiments in a year, in a way, if that makes sense, right? Like,
It does, because you have a very large kiln.
I have a decent sized kiln, and so yeah, it does. It takes a lot of time to get the wood ready, to get the pots ready, and to get all the glazing done and all of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I know, as you've just said, that it's a very slow evolution because, first of all, you only fire twice a year, right?
correct.
So my question is, so as you're going through this evolution, what is it that inspires you to make changes?
Um, you know, actually, I think so. Nature is a big part of it. You know, I think part of it is also that it matches my way of kind of thinking about things, because I take in a lot of information visually, whether it be from nature or from other potters or other things like that. And I read a lot, and then it kind of filters. And so, like, you know, the probably the glaze that I'm most excited about right now, and the pot that I get most sort of excited about is a glaze that I make with eggshells from our chickens, because we have chickens at our place. Ash that comes from our wood stove, and the clay that's dug up in our yard. That sort of yellow, brown, red clay that's all over Loudoun County. And so those 3 elements combined with one other thing, you know, I've developed a glaze, but it's taken 3 years to kind of get that glaze where I want it to be. And it's me looking at other people's pots. Like, I have a photo on my phone of this English potter, who's probably in his 80s at this point. And he has a similar kind of glaze, that I just have loved. And it was at the pottery that I worked at in Vermont, that I first saw this pot, and I was like, that glaze is just something. You know, it's got this vim, it's got this vigor that's like beyond anything I had seen, even though it's fairly subtle. And so, you know, that has been stuck in my head for 20 years.
Wow.
And now I was like, okay, so I'm going to use ash, and I'm going to use the dirt from around here. And I was like looking at a technical analysis of that glaze. and I saw that it had a high amount of calcium. And I was like, well, how can I get a high amount of calcium? Chicken eggshells. And so, it's that kind of evolution that's like drives me, and it's one of those things. It's like it takes a long filtering time, but hopefully it's moving towards something good. And I feel like it is. I hope that it is.
Well, I guess you'll know next time you fire up, right?
Exactly.
Right. Were the chickens happy with their contribution to the glaze?
I think they're very happy with their contribution. Yes. As long as they get fed, they keep working.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Okay. All right. Well, what I'd like to do now is bring over these 3 images of your juried work for the show, so that you can tell me a little bit more about them. Is that okay?
Sounds great.
All right. Okay. So to be a little bit traditional, Bryan, let's go from left to right here.
All right.
One thing I've asked all the potters that I've interviewed, and I'm going to ask you too, like this the first artwork on the left. How big is this picture?
That picture is about 11 inches tall.
Ooh.
So, and it's probably 6.5 inches or so wide at the top. One of the things that you like to have with a picture is to be able to put your hand down in it so that you can clean it out afterwards. And so being able to get your hand down in there is important. So, like I said, yeah, about 11 inches tall, 6.5 inches wide. At its wide, it's probably from the spout to the edge of the handle. And that's the Celadon glaze that I was talking about. That's the glaze that I've been trying to develop and make happen. So
it is a very substantial picture, really.
it's a decent sized pitcher. And pitchers work really well as vases as well. Just the way that they're formed kind of has a place where you can put water, but then it comes in, and so it kind of contains the stems, and then it allows them to kind of spread out as well. So
well, it's really pretty. And this, as you said, was the glaze you've been working on for the last 3 years.
Right. So I call it, it's a Celadon is the traditional sort of ash-based glaze that comes out that green yellow, but because I use the chicken egg shells, I call it Celadon. And so my tongue is usually pressed firmly into my cheek.
No, it's a cool name. All right, let's move to the middle of your flower pot, and I really like the design of this. I don't know, the imagery is at some point diamond-like, and at others it's almost like a wide leaf. What can you tell me about how you created this?
So this one is from my kiln has 2 chambers. So the pitcher was fired in the wood chamber, and so what you get is just wood effects. And in this planter, it's fired in the salt chamber. So the squares that you see are a glaze that are applied with a brush. And I like to play with a pattern and be loose but tight, if that makes sense. So I almost was thinking of almost like an Argyle pattern, just kind of block, 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 and where they interlay and play in that negative space. So the negative space, what you're seeing is actually the salt firing. So there is no glaze applied to the part that's brown. That is just the firing process. So you throw salt into the kiln and it melts the surface of the clay, and that is the effect that you get. Whereas the brushy part is coming from a glaze that typically I would pour or dip the pot into, and here I've just applied it with a brush, like I said, in that kind of tight, loose kind of pattern, almost an argyle kind of thing. So.
Right. I didn't know anything until this very moment about using salt in there. Is that common, or is that for most potters using that?
It's, I mean, actually in Loudoun County, there are at least 4 different potters that do utilize salt firing as part of their process. But it's a very traditional kind of way. It's sort of 16th century German. People typically think of sort of those gray pots with the blue decoration on them. Those are salt glazed. And so, this is just kind of the modern version of that. But it does take either a gas kiln or a wood-fired kiln in order to do a salt glazing finish on a pot.
Okay, yeah. It's really beautiful. It really is, and I do like, as I said before, the patterning of this. So it's cool. How big is that?
That one is, so when I throw it, it is about 15 inches on the outside edge of its rim. And I only know that because of the size of my kiln. And then, so the outside edge of the rim is 15, and then when it shrinks down to, after the firing and after drying, it shrinks to about 11 and a half. And then it's probably 7 and a half, 8 inches tall.
Wow.
So, and my mother-in-law actually planted all the succulents in there. So she does beautiful arrangements and things like that.
Yeah. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. It's really an excellent piece. So let's move over to the mug.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many mugs can you end up making of one of your firings?
So this mug, well, so 2 firings ago, I did a firing that I called Mostly Mugs. And I threw 400 mugs, and I got in about 300, because I've got, sort of small Dimitas kind of cups, and then, sort of your regular standard sort of, diner size. This one is my size, like a good 2 cups of coffee or a cup and a half of coffee. And then I also did sort of Stein sized ones. So those 3 sizes, and then I do this kind of mug. I do 2 others, and then the Stein is got 2 more variations on that as well. But when we were talking earlier, this is that mug that I got from this English potter, both the form of the mug, and then also this is that Celadon glaze, but this is on a darker clay body, and it has been salt fired. So if you compare it to, say, the pitcher, on the pitcher you see that the glaze is green and yellow, and it has that sort of umber touch to it, and that's the wood ash hitting it. Here the salt has put that pinholing, what we call an orange peel, which is what you saw in the planter, right? And that's part of the salt firing process. And so that, and then that darker clay body that's on this one really turned that green yellow into a green brown in a way.
Right.
One of those things that, I love that variation. You can use really simple materials, you can use really simple forms, and you get this very broad spectrum by changing something like, is the clay a darker clay or is it a lighter clay?
Well, it's a great looking mug, and I'm sure you enjoy many cups of coffee with.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. All right. Why don't we switch back to where you and I can continue chatting, and I'm gonna sweep away the images. Okay.
Sounds good.
And we're back. We're back. I have to tell you, your work is just, well, you already know this. Your work is excellent. You know, it really is. And I know that there's lots of art lovers and pottery lovers that would love to see, you know, a lot of your inventory. And of course, you know, being the way things are now, that requires the internet. So if you could give me, you know, like your URL for your Facebook and your connections to social media, that would be great because I think it would make things much, much easier for people who want to buy your work.
Absolutely. So I am, my website is taylorstownpottery.com, because I'm in Lovettsville, but I'm in the Taylorstown section. My Instagram handle is Taylorstown_pottery. On Etsy, I'm at Taylorstown Pottery, all one word. I'm sure if folks are used to buying on Etsy or other things, they know that like when you search, you've got to do that all one word kind of name title. And then on Facebook, I'm Bryan Mattraw, and I'm also Taylorstown Pottery. So those are the ways. And you know, we are, as I said, kind of out in the country a little bit, and you can get my contact information either email, which is taylorstownpottery@gmail.com, or you can call me up. And if folks are willing to come out, we can do a distance kind of exchange as well. That way, I've got the Square and Venmo and other things like that I can do to make sure that people have an ability to do a contactless exchange if they want to here on site.
So you don't mind potential buyers calling you on your cell phone?
Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah.
And what number would that be?
That'd be 703-297-9852.
Okay, great. I have one more question for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about with your art, your pottery, that we haven't covered yet?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the only other thing that I would say is I feel fortunate to have this WLast, to be on the other tour that I'm on, the Catoctin Holiday Art Tour, and to be in such a community of artists, you know. I mean, from like as far as potters, I know you interviewed David Norton, who I've known for that 20 plus years, Sean Grove. I've been teaching at the Clay and Metal Loft with Amy, Kristen Swanson, Amy Oliver. You know, like there's so many great potters, but then the other artists around as well. Like Loudoun County is just, it's amazing. From me being a student, like I said, I went to Loudoun County High School. I had amazing art teachers who were artists as well, and it's just a great community. And the Franklin Park Art Center and WLAS has been such a wonderful addition to it all. And it's sad to have it be in this year, but everybody's making do with what they can, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is really a art community that has a lot of depth to it, whether it's pottery or jewelry or painting or the performing arts. You know, we have a lot of great musicians and theater and everything else. It's really it's a special place to be.
It truly is amazing. I mean, yeah, it's it's overwhelming sometimes when you kind of see both the quality and the quantity of what's here in Loudon. And yeah, it's just kind of wow. You know, like,
Maybe that should be our slogan for next year.
there you go.
There you go. All right, Brian, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And I have three things I'd like you to do for me. One is to stay safe, and the second is to stay healthy, and the third is to have a fabulous day.
Well, thank you. I hope you can have all of those things as well.
Thanks. Take
I'll
care.
talk to you later, Rich.